Well, welcome everyone this morning. Hopefully you can hear me. I see my video keeps freezing, but hopefully as long as you can hear me, we can keep going. So our theme this morning is longing together. And for those of you that were at Morning Watch, it was a good introduction. And we'll do a little bit. I'm going to read, obviously it's the same Bible verse, so we're going to read the same story. But what I'd like you to do, if you have a piece of paper and a pen, I'd just like you to take out a piece of paper, and this is just something you can do while we're going through, but draw a cross on it. If you look, it's hard to see but I wrote it about halfway down on the paper, and you can just make an outline, and while we're going along this morning, just doodle away on that cross, but just leave an area around it that you can write on. And we'll try this and see, and at the end we'll show off all of our doodles, and we're going to write something around the cross, and then maybe we'll be able to take a picture of everybody's doodles and their cross, and we'll see how that works. So this morning, for the theme of longing together, I'm going to read the story of Esther, which of course is found in the book of Esther. So long ago in the land of Persia, there lived a community of God's people who had been moved far from home because of war. They had lived in this new land for a while, and it was starting to feel like home to the youngest in the community. But sometimes they were still reminded that they were outsiders. This land had a king who was the final authority on everything. No one argued with the king's decisions, especially after he got rid of the queen. That's right. The king called for the queen, and she didn't come when he.
You're muted, Robin.
Robin, you're muted.
I didn't touch anything. It did it on its own. I'll just read that paragraph again. The land had a king who was the final authority on everything. No one argued with the king's decisions, especially after he got rid of the queen. That's right. The king called for the queen, and she didn't come when he called. The next thing everyone knew, there was a nationwide search for a new queen. And the old queen, well, no one knows exactly what happened to her. The king's search for a new queen did not just include those who were from royal or rich families. The king wanted the most beautiful queen in all the land, so he searched everywhere. The winner was a young Jewish girl named Esther. She was one of the people who had moved to Persia because of the war. The king didn't know anything about her family, and he didn't care. She was the most beautiful, so she was to be queen. Esther did not have much family. Her parents died when she was young, but an older cousin named Mordecai had raised her. He was a brave man, honest and true. Mordecai had heard about a plot against the king and warned the authorities. For his bravery, Mordecai's name had been written down in the king's log, so his service would not be forgotten. Not everyone appreciated Mordecai. One of the king's top advisors was a man named Haman. He thought that if he worked for the king, people should treat him as special. He even called on people to bow down and praise the king. But Mordecai believed that people should only praise God and refused to bow down to the king. Haman was embarrassed by Mordecai ignoring his command and convinced the king that Mordecai and all those who believed like him were a threat to the king and should be put to death. The king didn't know any details and didn't seem to care. He trusted Haman and signed the order for all Jews to be killed on a particular day to come. Haman made preparations for killing all the Jews. When word got out, Mordecai went to Esther and told her, "You must speak to the king." Esther explained that no one went to the king without being invited, and those that demanded anything of the king could go missing, like the last queen. Mordecai encouraged Esther to be brave, knowing that God would be with her as she tried to save her people. Esther asked Mordecai to have all the people say special prayers for her and keep praying for her till she was able to talk to the king. Esther's servants also prayed for her and supported her in her task. With the courage of her community and God's promise to always be with people, Esther made a plan to change the king's mind. First, Esther invited the king to a party. She was very wise not to demand a meeting to ask a favor, but instead to offer a special invitation. The king was thankful and appreciated Esther. Once the king was feeling good after lots of celebrating, Esther asked if she could make one request. The king was so pleased with Esther that he offered to do anything she asked. Esther only had one request. She asked the king, "Save my people." The king was surprised that Esther was Jewish. The king was surprised that Mordecai, whose name was recorded in the king's book for special service, was a target of anyone's plot. The king was even more surprised that Haman was behind the whole thing. Once the king realized that Haman had taken advantage of him, the king understood what a horrible thing Haman had been plotting. Right then, the king made a decree that all the Jews should be saved. With the courage of her community and the strength of God's promise to always be with the people, Esther had changed the king's mind and saved her people. Even to this day, Jewish people celebrate the bravery of Esther and the courage of her community by celebrating her story at a festival called Purim. So when we're at Lantern Fellowship, we use the word community pretty frequently. So what makes a group of people a community? And if you're going to answer, you have to
American Fur Company.
you have to unmute yourself.
I had the TV, I don't unmute me.
Common goals, yep.
Fellowship.
Love of God.
Yep.
We say common goals,
Yes.
common
Love.
interest,
Other.
Common experiences.
Trust.
Trust.
Common needs such as, the Indian tribes hunting the buffalo, that kind of thing, I think binds people together.
A common mission.
Yes.
Shared identity.
Blood relationships.
So all of those things are how different ways of forming communities. How are the communities that we are part of, not just Lantern Fellowship, how are you bound and connected with different types of communities?
Well, most of ours are voluntary. I mean, you choose to be part of the church or you choose to join a group.
I think in today's world, social justice issues bind people together that might not normally cross paths.
And yet you choose to live in a community and you don't realize what social issues mean to those who are also in your community. Well, you would stick to that community. Like, let's say if you were in a school, you would have a sense of belonging to that school, but yet you wouldn't know necessarily where they stand on social issues. And yet those also might bind you together. Kind of.
So all of us are parts of not only the church community or the Lantern Fellowship community, we're all part of multiple communities at the same time, whether it's work, school, play. You know, for many of us, our family community, our church community, our school communities are often the most present that we're in, or the organizations that we work for or we help with. We often identify with a broader community, maybe based on race or language or religious views or aspects of our identity. How are you a part of the community of Lantern Fellowship?
Virtually.
And what is unique about being part of the Lantern Fellowship community?
The fellowship.
I think we come from such varied backgrounds and the age differences and stuff, but yet we come together to celebrate God as one.
The willingness to spend a weekend, even now virtually, but away from our lives and to take a break just to come together once, twice a year over multiple years, I think helps build that and really solidifies the, I don't know, our community and how much we all cherish it.
When we're at camp, I think it's the love of nature is the binding thing also.
Yeah.
The hay rides, the walks.
Love for one another.
The shared facilities,
Yeah.
Yeah.
meals.
Yeah.
What did you say, Allie?
Our love for one another is really important and something that while I feel loved in other groups, it's different than the love that I feel from you all, and that's really amazing.
So Esther was part of multiple communities just like we are. And she grew up in one and felt loyal to the Jewish community. Esther was married to the king and now was part of that community. Imagine the struggle that she must have felt part of the communities of both the oppressed and the oppressor at the same time.
And feeling responsibility to do what she could.
Yes. So she had a decision to make, and she risked losing everything. But of course, she wasn't alone either. She ultimately had the support of both members of the different types of community, the oppressed and the oppressors. So I thought I would show you a TED Talk that is about the power of getting help from someone else. And that was something that both Esther and Mordecai had to do in today's reading. So let me see. Allison, can I share my screen?
Just a second.
You move your mouse, it's at the bottom. It's a green square.
Yeah, you should be able to.
It says it's disabled.
Okay, just a second.
Yep.
Okay, now try.
Yep.
We all have milestones in life that we remember so vividly. The first one for me was when I was entering kindergarten. My big brother was in school, and by golly, it was my time. And I went trotting down that hallway. I was so excited, I almost hurt myself. And I go to the door, and there was the teacher with a warm welcome. And she took me into the classroom, showed me my little cubby hole. We all remember those little cubby holes, don't we? And we put our stuff in there. And then she said, go over to the circle and play with the kids until class. So I went over there and plopped down like I owned the place. And I'm playing. And all of a sudden, the boy next to me, he was wearing a white shirt with blue shorts. I remember it like it was yesterday. And suddenly he stopped playing and he said, why are you so short? And I just kept playing. I didn't think he was talking to me. And in a louder voice, he said, hey, why are you so short? So I looked up and I said, what are you talking about? Let's just play. We're happy. I've been waiting for this. And so we played, and about a minute later, the girl next to him in a white shirt and a pink skirt stood up, put her hands on her hips and said, yeah, why do you look so different? And I went, what are you talking about? I don't look different. I'm not short. Again, let's just play. About this time, I looked all around the circle I was in, and all the kids had stopped playing, and they were all looking at me. And I'm thinking, in today's language, it would be OMG or WTF. What just happened? So all the confidence that I went in with that morning was withering away as the morning went on and the questions kept coming. And at the end of the morning, before we went home, the teacher had us in a circle. And I actually found myself outside of the circle. I couldn't look at anybody. I could not understand what just happened. And over the next few years, I hated to go out in public. I felt every stare, every giggle, every pointed finger, not the finger, but every pointed finger. And I hated it. I would hide behind my parents' legs like nobody could see me. And as a child, you can't understand another child's curiosity, nor an adult's ignorance. It became very apparent to me that the real world was not built for someone of my size, both literally or figuratively. And so I have no anonymity, as you can probably tell. And while you can see my size, we all go through many challenges through our lifetime. And some you can see, like mine, most you can't. You can't tell if someone's dealing with a mental illness or they're struggling with their gender identity, they're caring for an aging parent, they're having financial difficulty. You can't see that kind of stuff. So while you can see one of my challenges is my size, seeing does not mean you understand what it's truly to be me on a daily basis or what I go through. And so I'm here to debunk a myth. I do not believe you can walk in someone else's shoes. And because of that, we must adopt a new way of giving of ourselves. Simply stated, I will never know what it's like to be you, and you will never know what it's like to be me. I cannot face your fears or chase your dreams, and you can't do that for me. But we can be supportive of each other. Instead of trying to walk in each other's shoes, We must adopt a new way of giving of ourselves. I learned at an early age that I did have to do some things different than most people. But I also learned there were things I was on equal footing with, and one of those was the classroom. I was equal. As a matter of fact, I excelled in the classroom. This was vitally important, I discovered as I grew older and realized I wasn't going to be able to do a physical job. I needed an education. So I went on and got a university degree. But I felt to be one step ahead of everyone for employment, I needed to have an advanced university degree. So I went ahead and got that. Now I'm ready for my interview. The first interview, what am I going to wear? What question? And don't forget that handshake. I was right there with you. So 24 hours before my interview, a friend of mine who I've known all my life called and said, "So, the building you're going in has steps," and she knew I couldn't find steps. So suddenly, my focus changed. In my shoes, I was worried about how am I going to get there. So I went early and I found a loading dock and got in and had a great interview. They had no idea what I went through for the day, and that's okay. You're probably thinking my greatest challenge that day was the interview or getting in the building. In reality, my biggest challenge that day was getting through the loading dock without getting run over. I am very vulnerable in certain situations. Airports, hallways, parking lots, loading docks. And so I have to be very careful. I have to anticipate and be flexible and move as quickly as I can sometimes. So I got the job, and in my current role, I travel quite a bit. And travel is a challenge for all of us these days. And so you probably get to the airport, run through security, get to the gate. Did I get my aisle seat or my window seat? Did I get my upgrade? Me, first of all, I don't run through anything. And I especially don't run through the TSA because I get to experience the personal pat down. I won't comment on that. And then I make my way to the gate, and with my gift of gab that my parents said I was born with, I talk to the gate agent and I say, by the way, my scooter weighs this much. I have a dry cell battery and I can drive it down to the door of the plane. Also, the day before, I had called the city where I'm traveling to find out where I could rent a scooter in case mine gets broken on the way. On my shoes, it's different. When I get onto the plane, I use my gift of gab to ask somebody to put my bag up, and they graciously do. I try not to eat or drink on a plane because I don't want to have to get up and walk on a plane. But nature has its own schedule, and not long ago, it knocked and I answered. So I walked up to the plane and gab with the flight attendant and say, "Can you watch the door? I can't reach the lock." So I'm in there doing my business, and the door flies open. And there's a gentleman there with the look of horror on his face. I'm sure I had the same look. As I came out, I noticed that he was sitting right across from me. And he's in total, complete embarrassment. So I walk up to him and I quietly go, "Are you going to remember this as much as I am?" And he goes, "I think so." Now, while he's probably not talking about it publicly, I am. But we talked for the rest of the flight. And we got to know each other, our families, sports, work. And when we landed, he said, "Michelle, I noticed someone put your bag up. Can I get that for you?" I said, "Of course, thank you." And we wished each other well. The most important thing that day was that he was not going to leave with that embarrassment, that experience of embarrassment. He won't forget it, neither will I. But I think he will remember more our chat and our different perspectives. When you travel internationally, it can be even more challenging in certain ways. A few years ago, I was in Zanzibar, and I come wheeling in, and think about that. Short, white, blonde woman in a chair. That doesn't probably happen every day. So I go up, and I get the gab, I start to talk to the agent, so friendly, and I ask about their culture and so forth, and I noticed there wasn't a jet bridge. So I had to kind of say, not only do you have to here, I could use some help getting up the steps. And we got to spend about an hour together while we waited for the flight. And it was the most magnificent hour. Our perspective changed for both of us that day. And once I got on the flight, he patted me on the back and wished me well. And I thank him so much. And again, I think he's going to remember that experience more than when I first came in. And there was a bit of hesitation. And as you notice, I get a lot of help. I would not be where I am today if it was not for my family, my friends, my colleagues, and the many strangers that help me every single day of my life. And it's important that we all have a support system. Asking for help is a strength, not a weakness. We all need help throughout our lifetime, but it is just as important that we are part of other people's support system. We must adopt that way of giving back. We all obviously have a role to play in our own successes, but think about the role we have to play in other people's successes, just like people do for me every single day. It's vitally important that we help each other because society is increasingly placing people in silos based on bias and ideology. And we must look past the surface and be confronted with the truth that none of us are what you can see. There's more to us than that, and we're all dealing with things that you cannot see. So living a life free of judgment allows all of us to share those experiences together and have a totally different perspective, just like the couple people I mentioned earlier in my stories. So remember, the only shoes you truly can walk in are your own. I cannot walk in yours. I know you can't walk in my size ones, but you can try. But we can do something better than that. With compassion, courage, and understanding, we can walk side by side and support one another and think about how society could change if we all do that instead of judging on only what you can see. Thank you. Thank you.
So I picked that out partially because it looks to me like it was a women's conference and we are all women in that. And of course it was in the curriculum, which gave us something to pick from. But oh, it sounds like I'm still.
Like many of us,
Hold on.
I've had several careers in my life, and although they've been
Let me close out of that. There we go. So I just wanted to hear what you guys thought of some of the points that she brought up, or what kind of stood out to you as you were listening.
That understanding comes from communication and getting to know somebody.
One of the things that stood out to me was she talked about needing help from others, which before, like from community and whatnot, but she specifically mentioned that it's strangers who help her every day. And that's like a terrifying thought to me, that I would have to rely on people I didn't know to make it.
Yeah.
I know traveling with my husband in a wheelchair has been very challenging, and some places you get lots of help, and some places they look at you like you're invisible. And if you, sometimes Ken and I don't look like we need as much help as he does. I know particularly our trip to London last year, I felt very alone because he was in the wheelchair and I was trying to control him and push him. And there was another couple there that had he was in the wheelchair, and they had tons of baggage. I mean, they just had, and they got people helping them because she obviously just could not manage at all. Whereas I'm sitting there trying to push Ken in the wheelchair, and we just had one suitcase because we planned only for one suitcase because we knew I was going to have to manage it and his breathing machine, and I just, at that point, I felt very alone because there was nobody around, nobody to help. And I ended up pushing him all the way and trying to figure it out by myself. And that can be terrifying, like not only getting strangers to help you, but being in the unknown and not knowing how to handle it. You're navigating new circumstances, and it's really difficult.
Mhm.
But you know what?
I got an electric chair.
Linda, if you were so in control, it would be a little daunting to other people not knowing, because you didn't appear to need any help.
Exactly. That was it. They said, well, we could just sit and wait. And it's like, no, we couldn't. We were exhausted. We were tired. We wanted to get to our hotel, which was supposedly in walking distance, which it was, but it was a long walk. So.
But you made it.
Yeah. But we walked, and I pushed him and dragged the suitcase, and yeah, we did make it.
Yeah.
But it was like midnight. We were exhausted. We took a taxi the next morning because the airport was so big. It was a direct walk if you could walk, but to get to your actual gate in the end was really a long way.
I don't think the handicap facilities in Europe and some of the other countries are nearly as good as in the US. I've always been amazed when I've been in Europe that the bathrooms are always 3 flights of steps downstairs or upstairs. Mm-hmm. And probably it has to do with those buildings being there for centuries. But I have a friend in Phoenix whose husband had a stroke, and for the last 13 years before he died, they traveled extensively. And she has some really good stories and some horror stories of how people reacted to their needs.
Well, they told us, in England, they have pretty good facilities. They have modified everything. I mean, if there were like the castle or something, they had an addition someplace tucked away, but where you could get in. But they told us that no one would help us with the wheelchair. And everybody did. They pushed us, the taxi drivers loaded it in the taxi. Nobody even questioned it. They never said, well, you have to do that yourself. They even the guides, who their job is not to push them in the wheelchair, would say to me, can I push for a while? And I was really amazed at how kind those people were, So it was, it's just, you never know.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed by Michelle in the talk, how she made, when people did reach out to help her or where it was an uncomfortable situation, she made it a good situation for the other people too, somehow, by talking to them and just, paying attention to how much they'd helped her, I guess. I mean, it just sounded like the outcome was very positive.
You made them feel comfortable.
Yeah, yeah.
I was amazed at how confident she was, and was thinking how remarkable her parents and her family must have been in giving her support and self-confidence.
True.
While she was talking, I was wondering, how does she manage her bags?
Really? Well, I know sometimes you do have to ask for help, and mine isn't as, as big of a thing as Linda's, but I was watching two of my youngest grandchildren. My daughter wanted to stay at an event, and I said, oh, I'd take the kids back. And we were on vacation, and I said I'd drive her car. So I had the baby in a stroller, and I get to the car, and I have no idea how to fold up this big stroller and get it into the car. And it's, 8 o'clock at night, it's dark. I have a 5-year-old and the 1-year-old and I put them in the car, and then I don't know what to do. And so I saw this other family walking by, and I said, would you have any idea how to fold this up? And the dad of the family did come and help me, and, whatever. It took him a little while too, but we did figure it out. And, sometimes you're stuck. You just don't know what else to do. And people are kind, generally, if you ask.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and one of the things that stuck out to me was at the beginning when all the kids in her kindergarten class look at her and say, you're embarrassed no matter what.
And how that completely changed things for her, that poor little girl. What we can do to each other and for each other.
And I also think sometimes it's the misconceptions, or if it had been handled differently.
Yes.
Because I don't think there was any intention to embarrass her, and the kids were just probably more curious than negative.
Yeah. And I wondered that her parents hadn't prepared her at all for that.
No.
Because you'd think that maybe they would have helped her be ready to respond. I don't know.
They may have tried and she didn't realize what the situation was. A family friend of ours, he's a double amputee.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to do, when we were kids, he used to do the, I can't remember what it was called. There was like a big day at all the elementary schools where they had a lot of people with various disabilities come in and speak to the kids about their experience and how to react. And he would always tell stories about being at stores and things where kids would come up and want to ask him questions, and their parents would be like, no, that's rude. And he's like, no, I want to talk about, because I want them to be comfortable with, how to approach. And we went on family vacations with them a lot years ago, and we would I think we were in Gatlinburg, and we went on the sky lift. And so there's kind of like an elevator, the little edge between the car and the platform that you have to get over. And the attendant, you could tell, was already gearing up to be helpful and not quite sure how to be helpful. And Russ just turns around, picks up the front wheels off, wheels back on the back wheels, and backs into the thing, and he's good on his own. And the attendant was like, oh, do you need any more help? And he's like, nope, I'm good, but thank you. And then when we got somewhere where we had to hike for a while, then one of us had to push, because he couldn't maintain pushing uphill for much time. But it was interesting because different people have different reactions, and sometimes even when you think this is how I'm going to react, that's not what you end up doing.
Right.
I'm curious what the teacher did. I know in my classrooms, when I've had students who don't, that might look a little different, I always do extra books, and we do community time, and we kind of really focus on building that classroom community to make, really ultimately all of the kids feel welcome, and to make it so that not anybody is trying to stick out. And so I'm curious, since she didn't really talk about the teacher's reaction. She talked about how when they met in a circle, she found herself on the outside. And so but she didn't go with a step forward and say what happened after that. And I'm really curious, like, I mean, this would have happened a while ago, so did the teacher not handle it well? Did the teacher handle it and just she doesn't remember it because of the trauma of the whole day? Like, that's what I'm kind of wondering.
Or did the teacher not even notice the exchange, so there was no way to handle it?
Yeah. It's interesting. I think they really are trying to. My grandson was in a preschool class that was run through the county organization, and his preschool class was so diverse. I was really pleased. Some Amish kids, a severely disabled kid that had an aide that was in a car and had a speaking box. I don't know what you call it. And two siblings from Africa that had just moved to the US and didn't speak English very well. And, it was an amazingly diverse class for Middlefield, Ohio. But I think it was a great experience because they were all included in that community, as well as their parents for all of the family events.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah.
Good.
One of the things that struck me was, that you never know what someone else is going through. So like, when she was talking about it, then it made me think of, sometimes when I get aggravated with other drivers or something, that maybe they're going too fast or something. And I sometimes have to stop and go, well, maybe they're rushing to go to the hospital, to see a loved one, or maybe, they're late one more time for their job or something. And that I have to be conscious that I don't know what's happening with another person, and that I need to be gracious to them for whatever may be happening. And then also hope that others will give me that grace when something's happening with me and I may not be aware of it. So
Yes, definitely. Any other thoughts on the video? I'm sure we have lots more, but so what I'd like to do next is with that cross picture that you've been working on, Esther also showed great courage in standing up for her community, but sometimes being in a community starts with simple acts of service. So next to the picture of your cross, I'll hold up mine and hopefully you can see it. I see that it's backwards, but I want you to write, I will not keep silent about. And then,
Robin, I know it looks backwards to you, but it's not backwards to us.
oh, good. So I will not keep silent about, and then select a word that will go on there. And then
on there where? What do you mean?
What did you say, Joyce?
You said that it would go on there. On where's on there?
On your paper, I will not keep silent about blank,
okay.
and write what your thing would be. Because Esther, of course, did not keep silent when she was confronted with evil. And then when we get done, I want to hold it up so we can take the picture, and maybe you can see the cross and whatever the word is when we take that group picture.
Were we supposed to have decorated our crosses?
You can if you want. Some of us are doodlers and some of us are not.
Okay.
But you
See,
can
I heard the scripture reading and then I was knocked off for a while, so I wondered what I had missed.
That's okay. Allie, can you take the picture? What I was thinking was giving us at like 10:55, we'll take the picture. How does that sound? So if you want to doodle some on your cross, you can.
I guess I was baking my bread instead of doodling.
That's okay. Some of us don't even have paper and pen, so it's fine. And some of us have crayons or colored pencils or whatever. So.
Hey, I had some of those somewhere.
I started with a pencil, but you couldn't see anything. It was too light.
I'm sitting here in Jesse's classroom, so I have everything.
My home classroom.
Yes. Gives us about 2 more minutes to finish up our masterpieces.
Oh.
Jessica's cold.
Joyce is cold.
Little
Pam
chilly.
has her heater on. I've got my little heater on.
Well, it looks sunny where you are, Pam.
I know, it looks sunnier than it is. Although outside it's sunny.
It's
just-
very
I'm
sunny
not-
outside.
I'm
Beautiful.
sharing.
I
Where
think-
Carol is too.
Yeah.
I think this afternoon outside might be a good place to be.
Yeah.
Good.
It's only going to be 60 here.
Yeah. But in the sun would still feel good, probably.
And 60's good after 38.
Nice
And
outside.
that's why most of us have our lantern jackets, right?
All right, we all have
it
our-
doesn't look good. Sorry.
What'd you say, Pam?
I said I've worn my lantern jacket so much it doesn't look like it used to anymore.
Same here.
All right, so can you take the picture, Allie, or do we need somebody else to? I couldn't hear you when you
Oh, I
answered.
like it.
You can do it.
Okay,
I like that, Jessica.
so can we?
And mine.
Mine's not going to show up. It's just a pencil.
That's okay.
I have to get rid of my background. I don't think it'll work.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Or I have to put it right in front of my face. I don't know what to do.
No, I think you have to get rid of your background.
Yeah, okay, I'll see what I can do here.
Yeah. All right, you're all set.
Yeah, they're going off here in a few minutes.
Hey, are we ready?
Go ahead, I will do what I can here. I don't know.
Okay. I'm good.
All right. All right, well, let us say a prayer, and then we have a few announcements, and then we'll go on about our day. So God, Help us to name our common concerns and find our common bonds as we grow into a true community of faith. Amen.
Amen.